warm welcome to East Kent Schools Together's creative collaboration, Our Shared Isolation. I'm Esther Miles, the artist in residence for East Kent Schools Together. I've received some really beautiful work in the last couple of weeks. Here's a sample of a few of the submissions. I've had a few of your symbolism worksheets in. And some really beautiful self-portrait studies. Thank you so much for sending me such creative and unique responses to the worksheets, and no two are the same. As you know, part of your submission at the end of April is to make a short video presentation of your work. We're all a bit more used to speaking at a machine these days, but I know the prospect of making a video can seem a little bit daunting. To help you, Canterbury Christ Church University's School and Engagement team are going to talk to us about confidence on film. They'll also take us through some really handy technical tips. I'm going to hand over to them now.
Hello everyone, Tommy from CCCU here once again. This time we're going to be talking a little bit about confidence on film, and also I'm going to talk a little bit about on webcams as well, because I think that's such a crucial part of our lives at the moment that it wouldn't make sense not to do it. So talking about recording for a traditional camera, or maybe even recording for a presentation, or even delivering a presentation, I think one thing that's really important is you try to create that feeling of eye contact by looking towards the camera. Now you don't have to stare at it, and actually I find if I stare at it too long I start blinking out basically. But it's really important that because we can't see each other face to face in some of these scenarios, that we try and recreate that eye contact that we normally would make if we saw one another. Now I do think there's some situations where actually looking at the camera is maybe not the best idea, and I think the most prime example of that is when you're having a one-to-one conversation with someone, over Teams or Zoom or something like that, or even a group chat. But it's really important in those situations that you're not fixated on a piece of technology, but actually that you're making the most of seeing these people and really understanding what they're saying, remaining engaged, and quite importantly recognizing facial cues. Something that's lost over text or over a phone call is that ability to read those different kind of cues that come with seeing someone face to face. Now, because you've got the opportunity to see their face, don't get fixated on a camera. Really try and stay engaged with what they're talking about.
If you're thinking of recording a short film, or you might have an online meeting, or you have a virtual classroom to attend, you want to be making sure that there are minimal to no distractions that are going to make sure you are feeling confident throughout. So that might mean asking family members just to give you some space whilst you're recording, making sure they're not coming in and disturbing you. And that also might mean turning all notifications off.
Now, my second tip is actually a little bit connected to both of those, especially, kind of when you're on a webcam, I found lately. But when I'm in a meeting or when I'm in a team chat, I find myself getting so distracted by that person in the corner, and it's right down there, and the situation is that normally before all this stuff, webcams and meetings online and all that kind of thing, I used to look at myself, a couple of times a day, just to make sure I was presentable and whatever else. But now I find myself just becoming so distracted by what's down there. And I think that it's really important that without any judgment, without any kind of distress, just kind of recognize if you are doing that and just interrupt it. We don't have to become perfect. There's no way that we'll always avoid kind of doing things like that. But it's really just important that we build up a behavioural habit of just cutting it right when we realise we're doing it, and just kind of returning to the moment and re-engaging with what you're there for, whether that's a class or someone talking to you. And that is also the same when you're recording on camera. Luckily, sometimes, when someone else is holding the camera, you can just kind of look down it. But sometimes when you're recording yourself, you are looking at the picture at the same time, and it's really important to as I said, feel free to look around the room to take something in, but try not to get too distracted by the details on the camera. Just looking at yourself, looking at the framing, do all that beforehand, and then really make sure that you're engaged with your audience.
You want to make sure that you're turning your notifications off on all of your devices. So if I was recording a short film, or if I was in a meeting, I would go to my iPad and I would put that on mute. But I also wouldn't forget about my laptop's notifications, and I would go into the corner, manage notifications. You can do this via the start menu as well, and turn them off. You might also want to think about going into any individual apps such as Teams or anything else that gives you notifications, and just putting yourself on Do Not Disturb, just to make sure that no pop-ups are coming up during your recordings, and so it doesn't distract you at all.
I found that actually looking into a camera, talking into a camera, is very similar to me to talking to an audience. And one thing that I've found in a lot of experience in talking to audiences is to learn to slow down and to learn to breathe. I know exactly what it's like when you have to give a group presentation in class or something like that, and what ends up happening is you stumble over your words so aggressively fast because you just really want it to be over as soon as possible. I've experienced that so many times in my life, but you also know, I'm sure, what it's like to see someone else doing that. You feel that anxiety and you feel that nervousness, and it's okay to start a little bit hurried, but as soon as someone gives you that kind of slow down symbol, as soon as you recognise that maybe you've gone a little bit too fast, just take a moment to breathe and slow down. Start that new sentence with a new rhythm and punctuate it.
You want to make sure you've got an appropriate background. This could be a white plain wall like the one I've got behind me, or a digital version that you can use on Microsoft Teams or those sorts of apps. So just something that makes sure that there's no distractions for you, and it makes sure it's appropriate for what you're actually filming.
When it comes to filming your video, you may have a camera that you wish to use. However, if not, then using your phone works just as well. Just make sure that you're filming landscape. This will make it a lot easier for you when you're editing your video afterwards in Premiere Pro or using another editing software.
When you're recording any kind of videos or you're in an online meeting, anything that uses the internet, you want to make sure that you have a stable internet connection. If it does look like you're losing some bars, then have a look at your router. Check the lights that are usually along the bottom, so here are mine. If I had an orange blinking light or something didn't look quite right, I would probably reset the router using a button on the back, or you can use an Ethernet cable just to try and make that connection a little bit more stable for when you're recording.
So once you're all set up, there's no distractions and you're feeling pretty confident, you can begin your video. Now, I think an important thing to note is that if you make any mistakes or you just want to say a sentence again, then do this, but just make sure that you're still recording. This means that you can have a little bit more content to work with when it comes to editing. You can make sure that you haven't missed any important information, and you can also make sure that your video is of the best quality it can possibly be.
So depending on what it is you're actually filming, or if it is just an online classroom or meeting, you want to make sure that you are feeling confident in your clothing choices as well. So we wouldn't recommend turning up in your pyjamas, but at the same time you don't have to dress too smartly in a suit or something like that either. Just make sure you're feeling comfortable so that you can be as confident as you can.
As I said a moment ago, those first 30 seconds are often the hardest. But once you get through them, once you kind of see positive reactions and smiles on people's faces and people kind of listening intently, you start to build positive feedback and actually you gain confidence. But what do you do for those first 30 seconds where you're not really sure and you're a bit nervous? Honestly, the best tip I've ever had is to just fake it. Fake it till you make it. And I know it seems as easy to say, but much harder to do. But actually, when you go into a situation like that, if you can just stomach that first 30 seconds, normally it's going to be sweet sailing afterwards. So honestly, go into something with a little bit of bravado. Go expecting to beat it. Go expecting to do a really good job. And actually, the results will be more promising than you'd think.
So that is it from us at the School and College Engagement team at Canterbury Christ Church University. We hope that this video has made you feel a little bit more confident about being on camera, whether that's when making a short film or when attending online classes or meetings. And we wish you all the best for the future. Thank you so much for listening. Take care and goodbye.
Thank you for that very straightforward guide to having or faking confidence on film. I know I'm going to find that really useful in the future. There'll be a bit of a break till you hear from me now, but in the meantime, please carry on emailing me with any questions or if you need any tips or pointers. I would also love to see any work that you have done or any more sketches or paintings. It's been so lovely to receive those, so please keep them coming in. For now, goodbye and thanks so much for being part of the project.